everybody, this is JDGaming back today with a deck profile of a brand new theme for the channel once again. Today we're taking a look at Mayakashi, or as I like to call them, Mayakshi, a theme that I have to admit I didn't give a serious look at first because they're so restrictive. All their main deck monsters say you can't summon non-Mayakshi cards from your extra deck while you control them, except for their tuner monster who keeps coming back and says you can't use any non-Mayakshi cards for the turn that you special summon it and get that free recursion effect. So as a creative deck maker, I was like, pass. Just because I love the artwork, I love the concept, but I just didn't really think there was anything I could do with them. But it just so happens that with the Zombie Horde Structure Deck that came out last year, being a deck that I very much enjoy playing, this theme is the perfect way to bring back Balerdroch and basically integrate the main deck Structure Deck antics along with this suite of extra deck cards, and we're actually able to make a coherent theme that I admit I've been having way too much fun playing. It has classic zombie world elements, it has synchro climb shenanigans, and the artwork is just gorgeous on these cards. So all around, I think it is a very fun strategy to play, so that's why we have it here today. If you've never seen this theme before, or kind of like me before looking at this theme, I do have an in-depth introduction made just for Mayakshi cards that you can see in the top right hand corner by clicking the I button. And if you want to see the deck profile here, today is going to be a let's build. It has all the reasonings and all those things that you've come to know and love from my channel, but I do as always have a table of contents in the description box with timestamps to the various sections, so you could just jump to that alphabetical profile if you so choose, and then come back here to the various sections if you have any questions. So without further ado, let's build Mayakshi Control. The first step in building any deck is to establish a theme and to develop a core that supports your deck's goals. And here we are talking about Mayakshi, and again, fair warning, if you've not seen any of these cards before, do check out that in-depth introduction, because I'm going to assume that you kind of have an idea of what these cards do, so we can do a little bit higher level discussion. It's kind of like your professor wants you to watch that lecture beforehand, you know? But I'll go through the basics here. Mayakshi Return is your power spell card. It's a combination of Rhoda with Foolish Burial. You take any Mayakshi card from your deck, except another copy of this, and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Hard once per turn, but that is a phenomenal support card for a theme that's otherwise rather restricted. We're mainly trying to go for our level 1 non-tuner monster, Haijun, the winged Mayakshi. All of them are zombies, so they fit nicely into the generic zombie support that we've accumulated over the years, but this monster is basically tour guide from the underworld. Upon normal or special summon, you could take any copy of Haijun Mayakshi monster from your deck and special summon it to the field. Hard once per turn, and while you control him, again, you can't summon any monsters from your extra deck that don't have Mayakshi in their name, but now you have 6 copies of Haijun in order to make your plays. Oh, let's make that 7, because 1 for 1 is perfect, discarding cards like Mezuki and other zombies will get you down the line in order to special summon Haijun, and you will trigger the ability to special summon. So now you have 7 copies of your main starter. What you're using Haijun with are your 2 copies of Daki, the graceful Mayakshi, and this is a level 2 tuner monster with 0 defense that says you can only control 1 at a time, but anytime you special summon a Mayakshi monster from your extra deck, well, this card is in your graveyard. Even if you just use it as material, it'll come back for free an infinite number of times, and you can't special summon non-Mayakshi monsters from your extra deck for the entire turn after this effect resolves, but it's still a very powerful way of getting your synchro climb on. So the whole concept here is you get Haijun out in some way, which special summons your Daki. 2 tuner plus 1 non-tuner makes you a level 3 monster, and we're not going to talk about his effect yet because essentially he has nothing other than you can only control 1 at a time until you bring him back from the graveyard through his effect or through some other effect in the zombie archetype. Then we have Daki come back. Daki plus 3 equals level 5 Tsuchiguma, and then level 5 plus 2 equals Tengu, level 7. We go and take 7 and 2 and make 9, Yoko, and then 9 plus 2 is 11, Gashudokuro, the skeletal Mayakshi. And this card is actually really important just as like your big beater in the theme. but then that's it. So it's like, is it really worth playing this theme just because you get like a 3300 beater out? I mean, you get another Daki for free, so I guess that's okay. The whole point of this is that he's gonna float down the chain that you just saw. If you happen to have a Link monster in play, which in theory you could take the two of these and upgrade it into your equally worthless Emilia Yuki-onna here, she has no effects that are of note. I'll talk about them briefly in just a second. But the whole concept is, if a Link monster like Yuki-onna dies and goes to the graveyard, you can banish a zombie from your graveyard to special summon Gashirokuro back. Then his effect triggers as a unique ability for him that lets you protect him from being affected by other cards' effects for the turn. Oh, that's pretty good. And again, that ability does trigger if you summon him back with Mezuki, Monster Reborn, something of that like as well. If Gashirokuro dies, then you could go ahead and summon Yoko, and its ability is upon resolution, target a monster, excuse me, not target, don't target, just kill a monster at resolution that your opponent controls, which is nice because now you can get around some things that can't be targeted, and it's hard to deal with because your opponent doesn't know what's going to hit, or at least they can't prepare for it because you can just choose something else at the time of resolution. 2900 attack is pretty solid. Then you fall down to the 2600 attack, still very solid, and it's able to kill a spell or trap in Tengu just like you would expect with a wind attribute monster. Once this thing dies, you fall back to level 5, and the stats aren't as great, 2000, 1800, but basically it's got the ability to force both players to Dante or Card Trooper Mill for 3, which could be a double-edged sword, could be great, could be really terrible, so just watch out for what you're doing with the theme, and you should be decently positioned to get extra resources off of him if you have the control aspect of the strategy established, which this deck aims to do more often than not, so I think it's a little safer to use in this build than if you were just playing him willy-nilly and trying to gain free resources. And finally, if Tsuchigumo dies, you're able to go for Oboro Guruma, the wheeled Mayakshi, and this card's got a mighty 2100 defense and says when he's played from the graveyard, you can make it so none of your monsters can die in battle for the rest of the turn, basically saying, hey, stop killing me this turn, I'm not gonna die. Yes, they could spin him away, banish him, return him to hand, whatever the case may be, and there are a lot of other alternative methods of removal in Yu-Gi-Oh! These days, but the fact that you're able to inherently stop the game's built-in battle mechanic of getting rid of cards is a pretty solid thing nonetheless, and these cards do float in being able to get you the cards that you need. I did mention Yuki-onna. The reason I'm putting this card last is you're really only playing her in the event that you can put out an extra monster, which I'll talk about in just a second here, and want the Link arrows. That's her biggest contribution to the strategy. She's basically a 1900 vanilla because her only abilities are you can only control one, which means you can't go and like cheese multiple into play and then go for like a Boral Sword Dragon or something dumb, as much as I wish that were a possibility. And it says, while this card points to a synchro monster or monsters, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attack. So she protects herself, so you might be thinking, oh, well, what does she do that's so good that you want to protect her? Absolutely nothing. Because what ends up happening is if the synchro that you control dies, you can go ahead and revenge have one of your opponent's attack and defense points on one monster once per turn, only until the end of the turn, which is absolute garbage if you think about it, because like it's so reactive, it doesn't do anything for your theme other than let you run over stuff. And it's like, I suppose you could crash one of your Mayakshi synchro monsters, have it float and have one of your opponent's guys and then get over it, but that's such a weak application for this card. Realistically, again, the main reason you play this is because it's an on-theme Link monster you're locked into that has the 2 arrows, and as a generic zombie control deck that this deck is, you are able to upgrade Yuki-onna into a different monster as well, which is okay, I suppose, but 1 copy of this thing in your extra deck just in case it does come up, and then 2 of every other synchro monster because you do want to have access to at least 1 chain of synchro summons. Usually 2 is a good idea. Then from here, ways that you can actually put Yuki-onna to use for the double arrows, which actually isn't bad. We have 1 copy of Shafu, the wheeled Mayakshi. This card is basically upon normal summon, it lets you Debris, Dragon, Crane, Monsterborn, whatever you want to call it, brings back a Mayakshi monster in your graveyard, except a copy of Shafu, but it summons in a defense position and negates its abilities. Hard once per turn, and you can't summon any non-Mayakshi monsters from your extra deck while you control this monster, so can't do that. Emilia's useless in this situation because, you know, Link monsters can't actually be summoned in defense position, and all your synchro monsters, you don't get their abilities, which is a shame, but at least you get to skip part of your extra deck in the synchro climb, because now you can bring back a bigger part of the chain and then continue climbing up with Daki from there. But the whole reason you play Shafu is, let's say you have access to both Hajun and Mayakshi Return in your opening hand. You can Mayakshi Return a copy of Daki to the graveyard, which allows you to then go ahead and normal summon Hajun or special it or whatever in order to special Shafu, and that lets you go and revive your Daki, and from here Daki and Shafu are going to combine into your Yuki Onna, and then, since this is still an extra deck monster, although not a synchro, Daki comes back, and now you have these guys go into that play, just because you have Shafu in your deck at 1 copy. So that's the main reason I like playing it. It does open up a pretty decent shot at getting out multiple monsters, all because you played a copy of this in your main deck, and when you play so many other discard outlets like Uni-Zombie in the deck, it's not terrible running the 1 Shafu. Is it the best card? No, but it's like an interesting utility card at one that you have plenty of access to in order to enable your combos, so I think it is worth playing the 1 copy of it. And then from here, to further allow that play, Foolish Burial, not only does it work as a staple in zombies, but if you were to Foolish Burial Daki to the graveyard, you could do the exact same thing with Hajun and Shafu, and that, you know, basically just gives you the better play in the strategy, climbing with potentially 2 chains over 2 turns instead of just 1 chain here. And then we're talking about the last of the Mayakshi monsters, and this is the reason that I wanted to make this deck, and I looked at this theme. Holy crap, this card is amazing. It's Yuki Musume, the Ice Mayakshi, level 1 water monster with 0 attack, 1900 defense, and she reads, if you control a Mayakshi card other than Musume, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard as a hard once per turn, and if you do, send a zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard. That's any zombie monster. It could be, actually I'll talk about them a bit more later just so that it makes a bit more sense, but if you think about Necroworld Banshee and Glow Up Bloom in the context of this deck, yeah, this is a very powerful strategy for the Zombie Horde theme as well. And it basically is 3 more ways that you can easily get Hajun into Daki, and then once Daki hits the field, you can special summon this, and then this thing can load up the other half of your deck while you're getting these 2 go and turn into your Yuki Onna play, and then Daki comes back. So more of the same, but essentially this card is phenomenal because it's a built-in Foolish Burial, and don't forget the fact that she can summon herself from the graveyard once per turn for that same ability too, which means you have a recursive Foolish Burial, and that's just absolutely stupid for the zombie theme as a whole. Transitioning now into more traditional zombie territory, we're starting off with a familiar card in 3 copies of Zombie World. This field spell used to be kind of a do-nothing. It's like, oh, you stop monarchs from being summoned. You could stop like plant monsters like Lone Fire Blossom and such, but nowadays you got dinosaurs as well. You got so many different type-reliant cards that this is actually a formidable force as an anti-meta card. On top of it, there are so many extra bonuses that this deck unlocks that I decided, hey, let's just build around trying to get 3 copies of this into play, or not into play, but like 3 copies in your deck, get this into play every single game, and just take full advantage of the zombie engine, and that's why we're playing 3 copies of Zombie World. In order to make that work as well, we're playing 2 copies of Terraforming, which is, you know, this is a staple in anything with a field spell. You go ahead and you search your card. You basically have 5 copies of Zombie World now, but the main reason this all works is because of the 1 copy of Necroworld Banshee. This is an 1800 attack level 4 beater that says Zombie World in your field zone cannot be destroyed by card effects, and neither player can target it with card effects. So, oh, cool protection effect. Real reason you play it though is that quick effect it has after that. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard during either turn to activate a Zombie World directly from your hand or deck, only once per turn, but now you can easily send this thing to the graveyard with Foolish Burial, Yuki Musume, any number of cards that support the zombie theme. Heck, you can discard it if you draw it, and then you're able to put Zombie World into play at a heartbeat, and that's going to be destructive to your opponent because now they can't do things if they need to rely on a type, especially when we combine it with some of the other support the zombies already have. So 1 Necroworld Banshee. Honestly, if I had to choose between Necroworld Banshee and Terraforming, I would choose the 1 copy of Necroworld Banshee first, then add Terraforming, because this card is so much more accessible in your deck than Terraforming is. Why add 2 copies of Zombie World when you can literally add like 4 or 5 or 6 copies? Like, it's just nuts what you're able to do with access to that one card. We're also playing Glow Up Bloom this time. This thing I mentioned briefly in like the rogue construction strategy. When you're not playing an extra deck, yeah, Glow Up Bloom's not bad because it says if this is sent to the graveyard, you can banish it from the grave to either add a level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your hand, or if Zombie World's in your field zone, you can special summon the monster from your deck instead. In either case though, you can't special summon non-zombies for the rest of the turn, and you can only activate one bloom effect per turn. The whole point of this card is to bring out your Doomking Balerdroch, but locking yourself out of extra deck cards when you need to play your Cyframe Lord Omega is a silly prospect. But in this strategy, we're playing Mayakshi zombie monsters that we're already locked into, and since they're all zombies, you're not giving up anything by playing Glow Up Bloom, so this is actually an enhancement to the strategy. It just so happens that Balerdroch is the perfect main deck boss monster that we can play while going for our, extra deck Mayakshi shenanigans, and we happen to be locked into those monsters. So Bloom is in here kind of as the one of like Banshee. Basically, these two cards allow you to access your Doomking Balerdroch with your Zombie World. And that's worth doing because Balerdroch is a level 8 beast of a boss monster, 2800 attack, 2000 defense. During the standby phase of either turn, if a face-up card is in the field zone and this card happens to be resting in your graveyard, you can once per turn special summon this card in defense position. Then he has an additional ability that says if a non-Balerdroch zombie monster activates its effect anywhere, once per chain, you can respond with one of these two abilities, and you can only use each of these abilities once per turn, but you could potentially use both of them. Either negate that effect of that zombie monster directly, or just banish one monster on the field or in the graveyard. That effect is during resolution, much like Yoko of the Mayakshi, so you're basically not able to, or your opponent's not able to respond as easily because it's not going to target. And that's a phenomenal ability when you're turning everything into zombies. So now you can negate all your opponent's zombie effects, and you can go and banish another card after that, responding to two of your opponent's plays. Again, they have to be for separate chains here, but you can potentially and often will use both of its abilities in the same turn, and this card becomes a formidable threat. I ended up getting rid of my own Avramax when I was playtesting this deck versus Aromages. This card is just dumb. It gets around targeting, protection, banishing, destruction, protection rather. It just banishes without targeting. It's a good form of removal, and he keeps coming back. Unfortunately, not from the hand, and that's why I play two copies, unlike Diabolos or Diablos from the other deck. But he's plenty accessible nonetheless by playing two copies. From here, we're going to further cement the generic zombie engine here. We have 3 copies of Shiranui Solitaire, which again is Lone Fire Blossom, allowing you to tribute any zombie monster himself or otherwise to special summon a tuner monster with 0 defense from your deck. Usually that's going to be one of your 2 Uni-Zombies, but don't forget, just to mention real quick, Daki has 0 defense, and that's why I like playing 3 Solitaires and 2 Uni-Zombies. Is I don't think you really need to go full 3 Uni-Zombies when you have the Solitaire suite, but you already have Daki as another target for Solitaire. So essentially, 3 Solitaires gives you another playset of both your Uni-Zombies and your Daki, which gives you more reach than if you were to just play more Uni-Zombies. Uni-Zombies great because in a synchro deck, a tuner monster is always good, but you're able to go ahead and discard a card from your hand to target a monster, buff its level by 1 for the turn, and on top of that, if you want, or switch, you choose one of these effects, you can send a zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard in order to go ahead and boost a monster's level by 1. Each of its effects can only be used once per turn, and your non-zombies can't attack the turn you use the Foolish Burial effect, but who cares, because everything we've discussed thus far is a zombie monster. So Uni-Zombie is perfect for this theme, and don't forget, if you have Zombie World up, it literally doesn't matter what you have, everything can attack. So that's always cool. We're playing it with 2 copies of Mezuki. You could play 3, but I end up playing just the Mezuki with the 1 Cyframe Lord Omega in the extra deck, because the basic play, of course, is Solitaire summon Zombie. You're able to Zombie Mezuki to the graveyard to increase its own level by 1 up to level 4, and then Mezuki brings back Solitaire, so you have a level 4 non-tuner, a level 4 tuner, summon your Omega, and this card can push your Mezuki back from your banish to your graveyard every single turn, which is a nice play. Honestly, Cyframe Lord Omega is the only non-zombie deck card that this deck plays, but it's worth playing. It's an honorary zombie. It's not just because I love psychic monsters. It's Omega just fits too perfectly into this theme, and you will benefit by playing this card. So there's that. And don't forget that this engine can be used to make synchro plays as well. All the Mayakshi monsters are technically generic synchro, so you could even buff Uni-Zombie twice, make him a level 5 tuner, and then have Mezuki, or I guess Solitaire plus Uni-Zombie go directly for the level 9 Yoko. Not always the best play, but you know, it's something that's available to you, so do keep that in mind. Be flexible with your plays, and then your deck will pay back dividends because of your awareness of different concepts there. Then from there, I do want to talk about two last Mayakshi support cards that I play, one copy each of Winter and Metamorphosis. So Winter basically says debuff all your opponent's attack and defense points by 100 for every Mayakshi monster with a different name in your graveyard. I honestly don't care about that effect. The first effect I don't even care about either. It says send this card along with a Mayakshi monster you control to the graveyard to draw one card. So why would you give up 2 cards for 1? That's like a worse upstart goblin, right? Well, the whole point is Daki comes back for free at the end of all your summoning shenanigans, so just get rid of Daki, send her to the grave, draw a card off of this, and it sets it up for its other ability. Realistically, you want to search this one of and then dump it with like a Uni-Zombie or something, but even though it's slow, it's built in to land in the graveyard, where you can banish this card from the graveyard along with a zombie in order to target a Mayakshi monster in your graveyard and special summon it, and that does allow you to go and revive to trigger those abilities as well. Just a one of, because you have 3 Mayakshi returns, so you essentially have 4 copies, and I originally misread that second effect. I thought it was at any point you banish this card on the field along with a zombie in your graveyard. It's like, oh, it's Book of Life, but better. No, unfortunately, it's not. You do have to have this card in the graveyard to claim that revival effect, the only real effect that's worth playing out of those. But the fact that I think it's a one of searchable card makes it worth playing, because you're going to see it make more of an impact more often than Book of Life, simply because it's a searchable card. So that's why we play the one. And then Metamorphosis lets you discard a card in order to summon a banished or graveyarded Mayakshi monster. You can only activate 1 per turn, and you can't summon non-Mayakshi monsters from your extra deck that turn, but as a trap card, it's pretty flexible, and it protects that monster from being targeted by card effects for the rest of the turn. So very solid. If you think about this thing becoming the Mayakshi monster and gaining your ability as a trap card, so pop a card without targeting it at any time. Bring back a chariot that can't be killed in battle and protects all your other guys from being killed in battle. It does unlock the potential of those cards, and I feel like the 1 copy is worth playing, again, because it's searchable by your Mayakshi return. And then to finish out the main deck here, some generic tech. We play Monster Reborn because it's just perfect for this strategy. You trigger all your zombie cards, and it's an amazing combo enabler in addition to bringing back entire bodies. We also play 1 copy of Return of the Zombies, which lets you, at resolution, again, no targeting. This is the theme with this strategy, right? Banish a zombie monster on the field, then special summon a zombie from the graveyard of that player who controlled that monster to their field in defense position. And that's really good because, again, non-targeting, banishing removal is always good. And then you can go ahead and reset this card from your graveyard onto your field by taking one of your banished zombie cards, shuffling it back into the deck. And you can only use each effect of this once per turn, and it will get re-banished. But many times you summon Omega, and then you go ahead, get rid of one of your opponent's cards, run it over, and then this thing's in the graveyard, or it banishes itself even if you've reused it. You push it back to the graveyard with your Omega, and then you set it again. This is a very powerful removal option at any point, especially with Zombie World making everything zombies. The only reason I play 1 copy of this instead of 2 is because it does rely on Zombie World, and although, yeah, you have a very good shot of getting this to happen, I mean, realistically, you could just, you know, mill this card with Tsuchigumo or like deck thin and draw into it. Like, you don't need to play 2 copies of this. You have plenty of other control options, and that's why I play the 1, especially because the big control card we're playing here is a classic from one of my friends. I mean, I'm not going to say his name because he doesn't even play Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, but shout out to my buddy who middle and high school always played the original Zombie World Structure Deck with Red Eye Zombie Dragon. This card is just stupid in this theme because it makes it so you can only control 1 type of monster, but if your opponent already has 1 monster and you have Zombie World up, it's a zombie. They're probably not playing any zombies in their main or extra deck, and they're just done summoning cards, so you just win the game because you summon big monsters that can end the game in terms of life point total, and yeah, they can't make a move. So this card's absolutely sick. It was always funny because back in the day, we'd joke about the fact that my friend literally invested in 3 copies of Rivalry of Warlords for pennies instead of getting an actual extra deck, but lo and behold, it killed my Plants and Psychics, which actually need their typing, and this card is actually really, really good as well. Again, in that test that I did against Aromages, I got my Aromages up to 40,000 life points against this deck using Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood through the Synchro chain, but I was like, hey, I don't care about life points, I think, and I'm just going to go for my advantage play. set up the zombie world with this card, and it just ended the game. Like, there was no way for them to come back. We actually got through 40,000 life points in a matter of a few turns, and yeah, that's what this card does for you. It buys you time if it doesn't outright win you the game, so it's phenomenal in here. It's a 3 of in the main, if not in the side at least. And then we have 3 Ash Blossoms. Obviously a good card. It's a zombie tuner that you can bring back at any point with Mezuki as well. But don't forget, if you activate this thing while Balerdroch is on the field, Balerdroch can say, hey, you use the zombie effect, now banish one of your opponent's cards. Don't banish your own Ash Blossoms with it, obviously, but you can banish your opponent's Ash Blossoms as well. So good card, worth mentioning. It's the best hand trap for this deck in particular because on top of it being versatile, it fits with the zombie theme. And then the last 3 cards I want to talk about are Red Eyes Zombie Necro Dragon. These are all extra deck cards, by the way. Generic level 7 synchro with the same stats as the classic Red Eyes B Dragon. It says gains 100 attack and defense for every zombie on the field and in either graveyard. And if he kills a zombie monster, or rather if any zombie monster dies by battle, whether or not this guy attacks, you can special summon a zombie from either graveyard to the field, which will trigger all your Mayakshi effects, give you free resources, whatever. It is a hard once per turn, so you can't just loop his ability, but he's still a powerful force to have. You don't always go for him, but you have the infrastructure set up through Uni-Zombie and such, so no reason not to play him. And similarly, we have a couple Link monsters that are just toolbox options as well. Vampire Sucker, this card is great in this theme as well. Obviously, you can't do it all the time because your Mayakshi monsters may be locking you out of this card, but basically, it needs any 2 zombies, lets you draw a card anytime a zombie is special summoned from the grave, which is phenomenal, and it lets you even revive your opponent's monsters as zombies to claim that draw effect, and you could tribute your opponent's zombies as your own monsters for Doomking Balerdroch, which does come up from time to time. So very interesting utility card. The only reason I play this at 1 is because of the fact that you can't go for non-Mayakshi, and that is a huge part of your extra deck, but it's definitely worth playing the 1 copy as a tech here. And you can even upgrade that card into Shiranui Skill Saga Supremacy. I found this card by accident, literally by finding a replacement for Summon Sorceress. I looked up zombie Link monsters, and boom, I found this thing for Shiranui, and it's perfect for the theme. 2300 attack, Link 3, points up, down, and left, and needs 2 or more zombie monsters to summon. Synchro monsters you control can't die by card effects, and fire monsters you control can't die in battle, which is a number of decent monsters. Your Ash Blossom, your Yoko, your Daki, all those are protected, and of course this card itself. But the real reason you play it is that second ability. Its quick effect is the icing on the cake that says, during your opponent's turn, quick effect, just target one of your banished zombie synchros and special summon it to a zone it points to. You can only activate that effect once per turn, but I don't think that matters because you're only opening up 1 main monster zone with this card at a time anyway. But the whole point of this is, if you've gotten your Vampire Sucker, gotten the resources off of it, and you want to close out a game, you upgrade her into Supremacy to get 700 more attack, and then she brings out whatever synchro you want in order to gain whatever attack that thing has. So it's very easy to claim enough power to end the game. It may not be a Shiranui card that that you're trying to play this with, but the Mayakshi cards actually do banish themselves or other zombies in order to revive themselves. So this card fits perfectly with the theme. I laughed at myself when I saw just like how perfectly designed this was for this strategy. So accidental finding, but it was a very nice serendipitous event. If you watched the video in its entirety, thanks! Hopefully this video gave you a bit more of an appreciation for this theme, because I honestly kind of regret not having looked at it a bit sooner. We'll start with the main deck here, and just to avoid confusion, because a lot of stuff's going on, I will go through the Mayakshi monsters first before going through the rest, because when it's all alphabetical, it's kind of a mix of stuff that's kind of hard to interpret. So we're starting off with double Daki, the graceful Mayakshi, triple Haijun, the winged Mayakshi, then single Shafu, the wheeled Mayakshi, and triple Yuki Musume, the best card in the deck Mayakshi. Then we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, double Doomking Balerdroch, Glow Up Bloom at 1, double Mezuki, 1 Necro World Banshee. Then we got triple Shiranui Solitaire, double Uni-Zombie, and then for spells we got 1 Foolish Burial, triple Mayakshi Return, 1 Mayakshi Winter, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 for 1, double Terraforming, triple Zombie World, and traps we have Mayakshi Metamorphosis along with Return of the Zombies as one of techs, and our classic 3 Rivalry of Warlords to round out a 40 card main deck. Then for our extra, again starting off with just the Mayakshis, we have 1 copy of Yuki-Onna, the Ice Mayakshi, along with double of every synchro monster. So Oborogumura at level 5, or level 3 rather, excuse me. Tsuchigumo at level 5. We have Tengu at level 7. We have Yoko at level 9, and Gashirokuro at level 11. Then we have some tech cards in the extra deck in 1 Vampire Sucker at link 2, 1 Shiranui Skills Saga Supremacy at link 3, and Red Eye Zombie Necro Dragon at level 7 synchro, and Psyframe Lord Omega as honorary zombie at level 8 synchro. That's it for now, but feel free to grab one of these videos on your way out. If you really enjoyed what you saw today, remember to subscribe to JD Gaming for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Thanks guys, this is JD Gaming, hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I'll see you guys next time.